Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Seth Meyers, clinical psychologist. And in this video today, I am going to be talking about something that is really important because it affects so many people. And I am talking about when there is tension in the mother in law relationship. Now, in another video, I focused on what the overall problem is in the mother in law relationship. And this is something that I know many people deal with and struggle with and talk to their friends about and vent to other family members about. And so in that video, I kind of outlined what the mother in law relationship looks like when it's filled with conflict, what causes it, why it develops. But in this video, I am going to focus not on the mother in law problem, but the mother in law solution. So I'm going to be talking today about things that can be done to improve a relationship where there is tension and conflict, maybe even estrangement in a mother in law relationship. You could be watching this video because you yourself or the mother in law, maybe you are the daughter in law, the son in law that is dealing with a really conflictual relationship. Now, I believe that everyone wants peace of mind deep down. And so that's one of the things that I want to try to do in this video is give you some techniques and some tools that you can use to try to put them into practice and see whether you can try to improve this relationship so that you have a little bit more peace of mind. Relationships that are functional end up helping us in our lives because we then have the energy when the rest of our life is going well to go out and live our lives, to focus on our goals, to think about what we want to do each day and not be bogged down and distracted by all kinds of personal problems in our relationship life. That's the main reason that we want to improve the mother in law relationship so that we have more peace, we have more balance, and we can then go focus on the things we really want to be focusing on that day. A, being productive in our lives and achieving our goals, and B, enjoying our lives as much as possible. The very first step to repair a problem in the mother in law relationship is to admit that there is a problem in the first place. Now, that may sound really basic, but a lot of times just starting from that very basic place is what's most helpful. There is a problem in the mother in law relationship. Okay. Have you tried to deal with it in the past? Have you tried different things to try to make it better? Have you tried to survive the relationship? The odds are the answers to those questions are yes. You have already tried different things and it has probably not helped if you're watching this video. So there is a problem, and what you have tried so far probably hasn't yet worked. So this is a video that's going to focus on some things that you can try, and by trial and error, you can try to see if any of these things help. I can tell you, having been a psychologist for 20 years and seeing many, many, many patients over the years, that many of these practices do work and really can improve the relationship that you have. The next step after admitting that there is a problem is to accept this. This problem will only get better if I try new and different things to make it better. That I have the control to change my own behavior, that I have the control over things that I do and things that I say, and that these are some things that I will try to do. When I try to say and do new things, this is when I might find a new result. I might get a new result if I try things that I haven't tried before. Here's what's really important about that. Some of the things that we're going to talk about in this video are things that you may not necessarily want to do. They may not feel authentic. You may think to yourself, no, I feel angry and I feel resentful and I'm still focused on things that the other person has done to really upset me. Well, that's what you want to do. But the difference between an adult and a child is that adults focus on what they need to do, while a child will often focus on what they want to do. That's what separates children and adults in some ways. So you, as the adult, in this situation, in this relationship, you are going to say, there may be things that I have to do that I will do only because I need to do it to improve the relationship. And they are not necessarily the things that I want to do. So there's what I want, but I will set aside what I want. I will set aside what I want to do and focus instead on what I will do. Again, that is what makes us adults. Another point that I want to focus on is the difference between short term and long term gratification. When in a moment you do or say what you want to say out of frustration or anger or feeling hurt, you are focusing on immediate gratification. You are saying it because you want to say it in that moment and you think there is a need to say it in that moment, that there is a benefit or a value in saying it in that moment. Now, that may be true sometimes, but when there is a relationship and the relationship has become a problem, usually setting aside what we want to say and what we want to do in the moment is really important in order to change things. What matters the most is focusing on long-term gratification and not short-term gratification. When there are conflicts and tensions and a relationship has gotten difficult, it is important to focus more on what is going to be good for the long term of the relationship rather than the short term. The short term, the immediate, the now is often clouded by negative emotions. So we need to set aside the short term and focus instead on the long term. When you find yourself saying and doing new things, things that normally you wouldn't do, but you are doing them for the benefit of this new improved relationship, you are focusing on the long term. You are delaying gratification and saying, I'm doing this now, not because it feels good, but because later, one day, this may result in an improved relationship. Okay, so just to summarize, so far what we've covered is the first step is to admit that there is a problem in the mother-in-law relationship. The second step is to say that you will say and do new things. You will try new behaviors to try to improve the relationship, that you will set aside immediate gratification and the focus on your immediate feelings, and instead, you will focus on what matters to us as adults, the long-term gratification, doing what is best for the long term. Okay, now that we've covered that, we can go to the next point. The next step in the solution of how to improve a mother-in-law relationship is one of the more uncomfortable parts, but it is a part that you must go through in order to get to relationship repair, in order to get to a clearing. The next step in the mother-in-law solution is to take some time and reflect on some things that you may have done that may have contributed to or maintained any kind of tension in the mother-in-law relationship, whether you're the mother-in-law or whether you're the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law. It doesn't matter. People say it takes two to tango. And oftentimes each person in a dyad, which is two people, each time in a relationship where there are two people, there's usually some responsibility of each person, some role that each person has played in continuing the conflict. So take some time and reflect on some things that you may have done that have not been good for this relationship, that maybe kept tension alive in this relationship. Now, this isn't just a reflection exercise. In fact, writing it down can actually be extremely helpful. So, if you really are really seriously committed to trying to improve the mother-in-law relationship, honestly, take a minute and jot down on a piece of paper or in a notes app on your phone. Jot down a few things that you may have done that maybe weren't so helpful in this relationship, that maybe kept a little anger or frustration alive. I'll give you some examples. When I said that comment at Thanksgiving to her, that probably wasn't something that I needed to do. Another example is this. When I told him that I wasn't going to come to that event, that probably didn't help the situation any. Those are some examples, but each one of us, oftentimes in a relationship, has done very specific things that maybe the other person in the relationship understandably is upset about, sad about, disappointed about, angry about. Now, if you really are committed to this, you will reflect on some of those things that you may have done, your part, your part in continuing this conflict, and actually write them down. A lot of times when you write something down, it helps to solidify it better. You can see it and you can actually connect better. It can resonate more with you. You also, a lot of times, are more likely to remember things that you have not only thought, but also written down. That's one of the reasons why writing down some of the things that you may have done that were not helpful in this relationship can be helpful for you as you try to repair it. Now, the next step, and those of you who are especially insightful may already have a sense what this step involves. On my weekly mental health podcast that I do, Insight with Dr. Seth, I call those who listen to it the insightfuls, because it's a really insightful audience, people who tend to reflect a lot, to think a lot about these kinds of issues. And so I'll do the same with you here in asking you, can you figure out maybe just automatically what the next step might be after you have taken the opportunity to reflect on some things that you may have done that contributed to this mother in law problem? After you have taken that time to reflect, after you have written down some of those things, what might the next step be? Well, the next step is a difficult one, but it is actually going to the other person and having a conversation and letting them know that this is a relationship that you care about and that you want to make an honest effort to try to improve. For some people, this may not be a conversation that they either really want to have or that they even feel like they are able to have. Maybe the mother in law relationship has become so difficult and so conflictual that you just really can't picture yourself having that conversation. That is actually okay. Any effort to try to improve things is better than no effort. One option for you would be to write a letter. People love getting letters in the mail. Nobody sends enough letters anymore. So let's all agree to try to write an occasional letter with a little more frequency. If you don't want to write a letter, you can write an email. If you don't want to write an email, you can do a text message. Now, it doesn't need to be 7 paragraphs. There doesn't need to be a Celine Dion ballad playing in the background. You can keep it simple, but make sure that it's real and make sure that you communicate your message. And the overall message would be to say, hey, I want to let you know that I care about you and that I really want to do my part to improve our relationship. And I want to let you know that going forward, you are going to see that from me. I am making a commitment to you because I care that I am going to do my part to try to improve this relationship. That is the most adult thing that you can possibly do when there is a problem in the mother in law relationship. It is also the most adult thing, the best thing you can do anytime there is any problem in a relationship that you have, no matter who the relationship is with. This, again, is about being an adult and doing what is the right thing to do. Everyone has feelings, everyone has frustrations, but sometimes we do need to set them aside and focus on what really matters and do things that are uncomfortable to get to that clearing, to get to a better place. Now, having this conversation or sending this email or this text message is a really critical step to communicate to the other person that you are going to be invested in an improved relationship. You get to this point, you do this step, good for you. Good for you. You have already taken action. You haven't gotten stuck in wallowing in the problem. You haven't been overly focused on blaming the other person and talking about how it's their fault. You haven't thrown your hands up in the air and just given up and retreated to a place of bitterness and anger. No, you took action. These steps so far are all steps of taking action. And that is how our lives get better, by taking good actions. Okay. Once you have gotten to the place where you have communicated to the other person in the relationship that it's time that you change some behaviors and that you are going to make a concerted effort to be better, you are going to face the most difficult step of all, and that is actually putting it into practice. In situations where you encounter the other person in the mother in law relationship, there inevitably are going to be times where you feel that you are tested. You're not changing your personality here. Personality overall is extremely difficult to change. And you certainly, if you can't change your personality overall, you're not going to change the other person's personality. So, what that means is there will inevitably become situations where the other person triggers you, where the other person, even though everybody may be trying, the other person slips back into their old habits, their old ways, makes passive aggressive remarks, makes outright nasty remarks, is dismissive, doesn't invite you to things, interrupts you and talks over you, patronizes you, does different things that upset you. Or you do the same thing. You slip back into some of those negative behaviors too. Watch yourself, watch yourself, watch yourself. The way to improve a relationship is to be hyper vigilant day to day and make sure that what you are saying today, that what you are doing today matches with your overall long term goal. Is your goal to have an improved relationship in this mother in law relationship? If it is, that is all you focus on. So, in every interaction that you have with that other person, all you do is you focus on, I want this to be smoother. I want this to be positive. I want this to be productive. I want this to end well today. I want this situation to close nicely. When I walk away later today, or I drive away in my car later, I want to feel better. I don't want to feel worse. I want to feel that today we have taken a step towards something better, not just recreated, reenacted yet another notch in our belt of anger, disappointment, and frustration. So you have to be very vigilant when you are maybe out to lunch with them, when you are maybe at a kids event with them, when you are maybe over at their house or they're over at yours. Prepare mentally. Okay, I'm going to see them a little later. I need to make sure when I see them later that my central nervous system is balanced, that I feel as calm and relaxed as I possibly can. Do I need to maybe go to the gym before I see them so that I'm a little bit more balanced? Do I need to maybe go for a long walk and listen to a relaxing podcast while I do it so I get in a good mental space before I see them? Do I need to maybe write in a journal? Do I need to call my best friend before I get together with them and say to my best friend, hey, you know what? I need to give you a heads up. I'm walking into a situation with them later, and I'm afraid it might be conflictual, but I'm really trying to be better this time. Let them know, talk about it. This is all an example of preparing in advance. This is that kind of hypervigilance. You cannot let yourself get sloppy. You also can't engage in any kind of wishful, magical thinking that, well, this time will be different. No, this time will not be different unless you are working so hard to be different, to be careful, to be so guarded about your behaviors. Positive, but guarded. You can't let yourself be unguarded when you're in a relationship that's conflictual, or else you will be likely to slip back into some of those negative patterns. Another point I want to make that is helpful in the situations when you are in that mother in law relationship and you are actively day to day trying to improve that relationship. And this is going to sound like the simplest thing. Yes, I've been a psychologist for 20 years, and no, you don't need to be a doctor to say this one, but I just want to do a friendly reminder to everybody: say nice things. to that person. Say nice things. Give them nice, genuine compliments. Maybe extend a little light physical affection. Maybe take your hand and maybe just, place it on their back and rub it warmly for a moment. Just the littlest gestures, saying something nice, or the nicest little physical gesture, sometimes can go so far in making the other person feel better, feel comforted. Remind them that you are an ally, that you're not an enemy or an opponent. Although sometimes in mother in law relationships, that's what it turned into, like your enemies or opponents are on opposite sides. Say something nice, do something nice, show a little gesture. Maybe if you're planning on seeing the other person, bring them a tiny little gift. Maybe send them later a little text message. Hey, it was nice to see you today. The littlest gestures can go a long way. And again, these are all actions that you're taking. This isn't just lip service. You're not just telling a friend of yours that you're trying to improve this relationship. You are engaging in many different actions day after day, and in every instance where you see that other person, to try to make it better over time as a pattern. The more you practice these behaviors with them, the more you will often find that relationship improve. So I hope some of these examples and some of these techniques and tools have been helpful. It is going to take a process. It is going to take perhaps, a period of time until some of that coldness or anger in the air between the two of you starts to dissipate. But you will see, though, if you continue to practice these behaviors, not just one time, but you start to practice these behaviors, these positive behaviors, as a pattern, you will start to see some benefits. And once you start to get that glimmer of some of those benefits, it will start to reinforce itself. And the goal is that you start to practice some of these more positive behaviors, saying nice things, complimenting them, sending a nice text message once in a while. The more you practice those behaviors, guess what? Those behaviors can start to become automatic. You don't even think twice about it. And before you know it, the relationship, let's say 6 months, 12 months down the road, you look back at the past and you think, wow, have we gotten here? Have we gotten to a better place? You know what's really interesting? One of the best, most reassuring signs of growth, of us actually feeling like, oh my gosh, is it possible that I am changing for the better? Did I just find myself doing something nice when in the past I would have gotten angry, I would have snapped, I would have lashed out? One of the nicest things ever is when we can look at ourselves and our own behavior and we can say, I just surprised myself. Did I just surprise myself with what I said and did? Did that come from me? I can't believe I did that. I can't believe that that person could say something that normally would have enraged me and I would have shot back at them something mean or nasty. And in fact, I found a way to feel okay about it, to be decent in response. Was that me? Did I just surprise myself? I just surprised myself. That is such a wonderful place to be when we can get to points where we can surprise ourselves with our own good behavior and we can say, yes, I actually can change for the better. You can change for the better. We all can change for the better. So I hope this video has been helpful as you work on trying to find the solution, repairing a mother-in-law relationship that may have been causing you pain or frustration for a long time. If this video has been helpful, please like the video. That way I know what you find helpful. And in addition, if you do like this kind of topic, you can check out my weekly podcast, Insight with Dr. Seth, where we talk about this issue and many, many, many others. Follow us on Instagram if you like, Dr. Seth Podcast, and I wish you all the best.